All right, we're connecting now, guys.
Welcome to the calling center. At any time during this message, please enter your passcode followed.
Your passcode has been confirmed. If you need technical assistance during your call, press *0.
There are.
Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Heat Illness Prevention Network webinar. And I want to introduce Dean Fryer. We have a little bit of an echo, so if someone is listening in via the telephone and they have a computer with the speaker up, can you please mute the speaker?
They can hit the telephone *6 and it will mute them.
Also, if you are on a telephone line and you are not speaking, please press *6. At this time, the only person that should actually be listening via telephone are those that are speakers. Thank you very much. And Dean Fryer.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Erica. Good morning. This morning we are here to cover some information on heat illness prevention. This webinar will follow the format that we've used before in conference calls. And today's webinar will start off with opening remarks from DIR Director John Duncan. We will then go to Fellowship Chief Len Welsh to discuss some pending regulations, and Chris Lee for enforcement. I will then come back on the line and cover our heat illness education campaign, and this will be a good opportunity for everyone to see some good best practices that we're experiencing out in the field, and also to see some of the images of our campaign. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to John.
John, go ahead and press *6.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here today to discuss our efforts in preventing heat illness for outdoor workers. We are coming to you via computer for the first time with this webinar so that you can see some of our visuals of our outreach campaign and of good practices by employers in the outdoor work environment. This webinar tool is relatively new for us, as you can tell, but we've really found it useful in communicating both internally.
You're awesome. You're awesome.
So it is our hope that you'll enjoy this presentation and find something that will be useful in your efforts to prevent heat illness. Our timing today is particularly appropriate with the current high temperatures that we're experiencing in the Central Valley and elsewhere across California. Since we last spoke a few weeks ago, we've stepped up efforts in preventing heat illness. We haven't, while there's a lot of progress in compliance, we've seen a huge increase from 2006, our first full year of enforcement, where we found the compliance rate of 38%, till 2009, where the compliance rate was 73%. But we know that there are problems still out there, and as of last week, we had a issuance of what is called an order prohibiting use, an OPU, so there's still problems we need to be attentive to. But we've also launched our educational campaign and excellent partnership with a number of industries that have been penetrating into out there in many ways, and that we're seeing results on the bottom line of heat illness and potential heat deaths. So we're making progress. Appreciate your participation today. This is really a workshop. We'll go through updates on pending regulations to the heat illness prevention standard, examples of best practices, photos, and details on our media and outreach campaign that complements our efforts from past years. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Len Welsh, Chief of Cal OSHA. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John, and good morning, everybody. I am going to begin by talking about the 15-day notice that came out last week to propose changes to the originally proposed amendments that were noticed last October on the heat standard. Basically, you may recall that we attempted twice last summer to persuade the board to adopt emergency amendments to the heat standard, and both of those efforts were rebuffed. We finally, in October, presented under normal rulemaking procedures proposed amendments to the standard, and those focused on amending primarily the shade provisions. It also proposed what we're calling high heat procedures, and there were minor amendments proposed to the provisions pertaining to water and to training. So the 15-day notice that came out last week basically is an amendment to proposed amendments, and basically there's a 15-day period right now in place for people to submit written comments, and it is even possible that we may again propose changes based on the comments that come in. Our target is to get before the August board meeting to present a proposal for them to vote on. So quickly, I'm going to go through the what is currently out there proposed for adoption as amendments to the standard. And what you'll notice if you take a look at this, and by the way, you can get it by going to the Standards Board's website. Usually the way I get there is to go to www.dir.ca.gov and then go to the Standards Board, and you'll find a link on the Standards Board's main page to proposed standards, and that's where you can find heat under 3395. And the final entry there is the proposed notice of changes. That's where you can find this. And what we are proposing first off is to limit the scope of application of the high heat procedures to only certain industries. The high heat procedures are in proposed subsection E, and basically they call for ensuring effective communication by voice when the temperature exceeds 95 degrees Fahrenheit, observing employees for alertness and signs or symptoms of heat illness, reminding employees throughout the work shift to drink plenty of water, and closely supervising new employees during the first 14 days of their work. So in contrast to what was proposed in October, this new version would have these high heat procedures applying only to the following industries: agriculture, construction, landscaping, oil and gas extraction, and here's a mouthful, transportation or delivery of agricultural products, construction materials, or other heavy materials, e.g. furniture, lumber, freight, cargo, cabinets, industrial, commercial, or commercial materials. So only those 5 industry categories under this newly proposed version would be subject to the high heat procedures. Next, in the water provisions, we have proposed minor changes, which we are now proposing just to delete and revert back to the language that is currently in the standard. The changes that were proposed were fairly minor. In fact, they're already required in agriculture under the field sanitation standard, and the point here was to not complicate things because we think the message is out there loud and clear already. In shade, there is no change to the originally proposed amendments for the shade provisions, and you probably recall that what we were proposing was to have an explicit requirement to have shade actually up when the temperature exceeds 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and for that shade actually up to be able to accommodate at least 25% of the employees on the shift at any time. So, of course, we're proposing to keep those provisions. We've also, I think, uncomplicated the language about access to shade. We're simply saying that employees are to be provided access to shade whenever they feel they need it, essentially. We are deleting that phrase preventative recovery period because we seem to be encountering a lot of confusion about what that actually means. So basically the point is if an employee feels like they need shade, they get it. End of story for a period of about 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes. So the only change that we proposed to those amendments that were proposed back in October is to include an exception. Remember, we already have an exception to the shade provisions in the existing standard, which allows industries other than ag to use cooling measures other than shade if the employer can demonstrate that they're at least as effective as shade in providing cooling for employees. We're proposing to add a second exception which would apply to all employers, and basically it would cover those cases where it's infeasible to have shade actually up. For example, if you have roving employees who are covering large distances during their shift, you can't have shade following them, but you can easily have them bringing a large umbrella or something like that so they can put it up whenever they need it. So in situations like that where it is infeasible to have shade actually up, the employer can use alternative procedures like the one I just described as long as they can demonstrate that what they're doing is equally effective as having shade actually up. Finally, I mentioned minor changes that were originally proposed to the training provisions, and we've tried to hone that language a little bit further. We had originally proposed to add to the training, to the intro language in training, no employee or supervisor shall begin outdoor work to which this section applies unless the employee or supervisor has received the training required by this section. We're instead going to propose that the training be provided before the employee begins work that should reasonably be anticipated to result in exposure to the risk of heat illness. And similarly, we are proposing that supervising employees also get supervisor training before they engage in supervision of employees doing work that should reasonably anticipated result in exposure to the risk of heat illness. So those are the proposed changes out there on the 15-day notice. Your comments, of course, are welcome. They have to be in writing, and they are to be directed to the Standards Board, and we hope to hear from you. So I think on that, I'm going to turn this over to Chris Lee, our Deputy Chief for Enforcement. Chris, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Len, and good morning to everyone. We at the department and Cal OSHA very much appreciated the comments and questions during the Heat Illness Prevention Network conference call at the beginning of this month, and we wanted to take a few minutes to provide you with some examples, photographs taken by our folks in the field, of how water and shade can be provided at outdoor work sites. And so we see a picture of a woman looking forward to enjoying a cool cup of water. We do look for, for an 8-hour shift, 2 gallons of water a day. We have a picture of some employees taking an opportunity to enjoy some shade and rest. And training is a very critical element of our standard for both supervisors and employees. And we want to make sure that you have an emergency plan in place that reflects the requirements of our Injury and Illness Prevention plan, the IIPP, as well as training on emergency plans. The training and a written, well-thought-out emergency plan specific for your company and work site are key to fully complying with the 3395, our heat regulation. And I believe we're going to move to a single photograph here, heat illness prevention in the field. Erica?
Actually, Chris, go ahead and let's use the photo that's here on this slide.
Okay. All right. If I could draw your attention, please, to the photo in the upper right portion of your screen. It shows some employees under a pop-up type canopy. And just wondering if some folks can take a look at that and see if that employer is fully in compliance with the standards. So I believe we're going to do a poll here.
Okay, and this, please do go ahead and answer the question on the poll based on the photo that you just saw briefly. We'll just keep this open for a few moments.
Right.
So, actually, I'm on the wrong poll. I'm so sorry, folks. Let's use this one instead.
So the question is, do you folks believe that the photo of the crew in the shade complies fully with safety and health regulations found at Section 3395, our heat illness prevention standard?
All right, and we're going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And Chris, now you should see the results.
It's pretty close, but I would draw your attention to the individual, appears to be a male, sitting on top of a water cooler, and unfortunately he has sun basking on his back. He's not fully in the shade and therefore can't fully benefit from the benefits of the cooling effect of being in shade. He's also sitting on what appears to be an igloo-type water container, and which is on the ground, and his feet are propped up against it. It's not entirely clear whether his feet are near the spigot, but it's probable that that spigot could get dirty and affect the quality of the water. So anyway, when you do have a shade up for your folks, make sure that they're fully covered by that shade to maximize the benefits of being in shade to cool the body down.
Yeah, if I could just editorialize a little bit. This is kind of a trick question. You can't force an employee to sit in the shade. The obligation is to make sure that there is enough shade there for everybody to take advantage of it that needs to. And it does look fairly crowded there, like perhaps that's about the only place where that employee can sit. And so in many of these cases, there is a little bit of judgment you have to exercise. But we thought this was a good picture because there are some problems there. Exactly how they calculate out as, bona fide violations, would take a little bit more exploration. But that's a problematic scene that, some red flags should go up for some people as they look at that.
And if I could just add, we look for, maximum professional judgment in the field by our compliance officers, so they would want to carefully evaluate that situation and take a look at the particulars. Okay? Thank you.
All right, and just a quick parenthesis there, Chris. This is Erica once more. We do have some questions coming in. We appreciate the questions, and we will be responding to those questions once this portion has concluded, and Dean's portion as well. So
okay.
Continue to ask questions, and we will get to them. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Okay, our next slide, heat illness prevention in the field, water. As close as practicable. We have to look for water to be immediately available for employees so that they can make sure that they are hydrated throughout their work shift. So proximity is an issue. We see some pictures here of employees taking, their water break, and we see some agricultural operations. See some folks on the lower left appear to be construction workers, and there are many different configurations of providing the water. We see in the upper right there's like an all-in-one combination unit on wheels, a bench provided there with a shade up, of course, and a couple of water containers with paper cones available. So, we want to make sure that not only is it proximate to the workers and that they can take water whenever they need it, the employer must make sure that those containers are replenished as necessary and as appropriate. The bottom line here is for us to make sure that our staffs are fully trained. We just had a conference call webinar to train and to go over all of the requirements in the field and make sure that there's some uniformity and consistency in what we do because we are going throughout the state and we want to make sure that employers are being uniformly, in compliance with the standard and treated fairly and equitably by our staff. Len, anything else?
Oh, I guess two minor points. Well, actually not minor, especially the first. Please keep in mind that the closeness of water is not entirely the same issue as the closeness of shade. Getting shade as close as practicable to the work can present some difficulties. Getting water as close as practicable may not. Generally speaking, water in many cases can be brought a lot closer to the workers without much trouble. So you should not get in the mindset where you sort of think in your mind, well, shade, water, toilets all go together. Yeah, they may go together at one spot, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't have water elsewhere more closely placed to workers, or shade for that matter. Secondly, you notice a lot of fine print there in that one photo of the igloo, or whatever they are, containers. And I believe if we were able to see that print up close, there would be a lot of language there about drinking water and, a lot to stay cool. And it's kind of a nice thing to have, a little bit of a written reminder there, right there by the water containers. So workers are kind of seeing that all the time. It's nice little bit of reinforcement. That's it.
Thank you. The next slide shows heat illness prevention in the field. Rest in the shade to cool down. That's critically important for employees in hot outdoor work environments. You see in the upper left we have sort of a popped-up structure. We have our friends under the yellow and blue pop-up canopy there. And then we have a couple of different examples of sort of the all-in-one combination unit. Excuse me. A trailer-type structure with a bench and tables available there, water obviously immediately available, and shade up as well. We see a picture on the right side of an employee taking a rest break there under the shade. And now we look in the bottom slide to see some construction workers taking a break there in the shade as well. The issue of how much shade to provide, we generally look for coverage of 25% of the workforce that's there in the field to be able to go and cycle around for the entire work crew to get in there under the shade. So 25% at any given time. Shade is a sort of a wide-ranging issue. You can have the trailer type shade option. You can have a pop-up canopy, and even in some instances, natural vegetation, vines, old-growth vines, or even trees can provide acceptable forms of shade. And so, but again, looking at things like natural vegetation, we would look to the compliance officer to use maximum professional judgment. Is there blockage of the sun? Does it provide the cooling effects that we're looking for into the standard? And shade in any of its forms must be available at all times upon request. And it must be up when it's forecast to be 85 degrees or hotter. So that covers some issues related to shade, and I'd like to introduce Dean Fryer, our Deputy Director of Communications. Dean?
Hey, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. I want to go through with you some of the outreach, actually one of the main campaign that we've developed this year for our heat illness prevention. This campaign is one that we undertook in partnership with the University of California to develop really a comprehensive approach to leveraging our information to reach our targeted audiences. And the campaign, is designed to really complement the ongoing efforts that we have with all of our partners, with folks on this call, with the Chamber, with Nisei Farmers, the Catholic Diocese is a close partner of ours to reach employees, and many other associations. So we've developed this campaign. This comes from funds that are brought to us through Labor Code 2699, which, this doesn't come out of the general fund. This comes from monies received through lawsuits for Labor Code violations. So this is applied in a very comprehensive approach through billboard campaigns, radio campaigns, multiple languages here. We've touched primarily in Spanish, but we've also hit Mixteco, Hmong, Punjabi. We're really hitting these audiences as our target audiences. The billboard campaign, which you see here right now, is up throughout the state. The slogan you see on the right-hand side, water, rest, shade, the work can't get done without them. That's the important message that we have found that, employees, it's a message that is relevant to them. We did focus groups to develop these campaigns, so these messages. And one thing we found is that the workers want to see photographs of real people that represent them, and that's what we've got here. So we've developed this both in English, Spanish. The billboards are up in Spanish. Over 90% of our outdoor advertising is actually in Spanish. And like I said, these are up across the state. We've got them through the Central Valley, the Inland Empire down south, Coachella Valley, Palm Springs area. And actually, I don't know if anybody's seen these, but we've got a poll that we'd like to have you take real quick to just let us know if you've actually seen any of this advertising, if it's familiar to you, if you've seen it out there. So if you want to check this out, the question is, have you seen any of the signs posted or heard any of the commercials on radio? And actually, we've been running radio commercials also on Spanish language, and I believe on the Hmong station. So let us know here. Check this poll out and tell us what you've seen, if you've seen or heard the ads.
All right, and everyone should see the poll at this time. And we're going to be closing that poll in approximately 5, 4, 3, 2. Actually, let's start that over. It looks like we had an issue here. So if you can go ahead and let's do this once more, please. And we're going to now start closing this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you should see the results. Dean?
Yeah, okay, there it is. So some folks have seen it. It looks like a lot of folks haven't yet seen it. But I think now that we've shown you the images, you might catch a glimpse of the billboards and the signage that will be out there. Keep an eye out. It is posted throughout the state. And this campaign, the outdoor signage campaign with the billboards, also has ads up in local markets. We've developed signage for markets also. And we've installed these in stores and other places frequented by the community that we are targeting. We've also got signage in stores in Hmong and Punjabi as well. We've installed those obviously for the Hmong community in the Fresno area, and we've got them installed in the Yuba City area where there's a majority of the Punjabi population. We have moved forward to enlist the assistance of commuter vans and lunch trucks to get our ads out. We have really worked with a lot of the lunch trucks in Southern California that visit a lot of the construction sites, so we've got full coverage there. There's the vans that take farm workers out to the fields. In Kings County, for example, there's the van pool network there that we've got the signage out on. These people that operate these vans and the lunch trucks have actually committed to, in addition to just the signage, to provide information to workers and people that frequent them. So we're really reaching out to the community through those avenues. So this overall campaign really, it's really a multi-level approach. We're really touching through all the media that we've described here. We're hitting many of the languages that we identified as our target markets, and we've incorporated. We also have a website and a hotline for people to visit. We've also developed easy-to-read fact sheets that are designed for low literacy audiences, and there's a heavy emphasis on illustrations to convey our key concepts. And we've made these available in English, Spanish, in Hmong, and in Punjabi. So they're again reaching out to the community. And to tie in our message even further, we've developed a series of community posters, again to reinforce our messages. These are going out to the same audiences. We've also created multilingual DVDs, which are designed to reach people with a low literacy. Again, these are developed as training tools. We want to get them out to the communities also. Hopefully we can get them into, nonprofit organizations. The consulates actually have requested some. We're going to, see if we can get them into clinics and different places that our audience, again, will frequent so we can, get the message out there. These are in all the language that I mentioned earlier, the Spanish, Punjabi, Hmong. We also have it in Mixteco, the DVDs. There's also a discussion guide that goes with this so that, during training sessions you can interact and ask questions and have further discussions. Our website is up and running. I believe all this material can be accessed on the website. 99color.org is our website. So all the information is there. We encourage you to visit that. We've got the sound files up there for the radio ads, the billboard displays. All the materials are there. We also have training materials that, that are quite effective here, I think, for employers. They're employer training kits that they can utilize through training, for training exercises. These resources are available. We can send those out. They include, visuals, some of the images, the fact sheets, the training guides for supervisors to use in doing trainings. So it's quite a comprehensive campaign. So, do keep an eye out for them. Visit our website to get more information or to access some of the materials. I think we're going to do some Q&A at this point. So if you have any questions, there is the Q&A tab at the top of your screen that you can open up and type in a question, and we'll be happy to answer the questions.
Okay, Dean, and we actually do have two people that have questions at this time. And we'll start with a question from Richard Molinar pertaining to shade. It equals they can sit in a normal posture fully in the shade without having to be in physical contact with each other. So does seating have to be provided under the canopies? And I will pose this to anyone on the panel for response.
I'll take that. Does seating have to be provided? Our policy on that right now is that if somebody would have to sit on bare dirt, we think some sort of, something needs to be provided to avoid that situation, whether it's a towel, blanket, a bucket, a box, a chair would be great, something to make it so the employee doesn't have to contact bare dirt. A lawn is no problem, and that's kind of the way we have it right now.
Very good. Anyone want to add to that? All right, moving forward to the next question from Yvette Nonato. I've recently traveled to the southern parts of the state. I have not seen your billboards. Could you repeat the labor code that you mentioned in relation to this billboard campaign?
Yeah, I can take that. The labor code section is 2699. That's money through the Private Attorney General's Act that when there's a lawsuit for a labor code violation, that a portion of that award will go towards training of employers and employees. So you indicated you were in the southern part of the state. We are really looking at, the billboards being out in the eastern side of Southern California, not so much in LA and San Diego, but out where a lot of outdoor workers are. So we've got them out in Coachella, Hot Springs, Hemet, Beaumont, out in that direction. So, and it's important to mention too that we'll be cycling these. I think the next cycle where we'll refresh the billboard ads and select different locations and put different ones up will happen next month. So they're not going to be static in the same place. They'll be rotated around, so folks will see them in different locations. And we're really trying to get these billboards into the local communities. I know there are several up along Highway 99 as you go through the Central Valley, but a lot of these will be out into the communities where the workers are possibly live or commuting to their job sites.
Okay, very good. The next question is from Anita Forrester. Will this presentation be available to view later for anyone who missed it? And I actually can answer that question. We're currently recording this session, and we will be able to download that recording. And Dean, is there a way that we can post it perhaps on our heat illness prevention page?
Yeah, we could do that. That should be fine. We want to actually, make sure that we've got a good sound quality to it, so we'll check it out first before we post it. But yeah, we'll make this available.
And then the other point to add to that is that anyone who is currently on this meeting does have access to view that recording as well via the live meeting site. Okay, the next question is from Ernie Doggett. His question is the amount of water consumed during an 8-hour day quantified?
Is the amount consumed quantified? No, we're not asking anybody to keep track of what people drink. We are insisting, of course, that enough be available so that employees can drink at least 4 8-ounce cups per hour during the shift. And I don't think we mentioned before with the water, but it isn't necessary to start out with enough water for everybody for all day long in one place at the beginning of the shift. You can start out with less than that as long as you have replenishment procedures that are dependable and effective.
Very good. The next question is from D. Boyd, and the question is, are not buckets, boxes, and other non-designed seating structures capable of producing liability if given to accomplish a seating requirement?
That I know of. I mean, I guess somebody could file a third-party lawsuit against the bucket manufacturer, but I'm not sure I would recommend that. I should mention that, obviously what we would like to see is for there to be proper seating, a chair, et cetera. There are plenty of chairs around that are not ergonomically designed, and there's just, so far you can go. In many situations, things are moving fast, and, the practicality of the situation may dictate different strategies at different times. But the main point is for somebody to be able to rest and not have to compromise sanitation in so doing.
Okay, we have another question from Richard Molinar, and the question is close supervision of a new employee by a supervisor or designee for the first 14 days of the employee's employment by the employer, unless the employee indicates at the time of hire he or she's been doing similar work for at least 10 of the past 30 days for 4 or more hours a day. Does the regulation specify what is meant by close supervision?
Well, I'm going to take the first part of that as a question to some extent as well, where I think that, and it's sort of a comment, and I think what the gist of that comment is that an employer can only do so much. They can ask the employee what their previous work experience has been, and the employee can either answer completely and honestly or not. Obviously, all of these requirements are stated with the idea in mind that an employer has to, take reasonable action to attempt to comply with this standard, and you can only do so much. So you ask in a responsible way, and hopefully you get a responsible answer. If you don't, then that's just the way it is. You work with what you got, and we will recognize that, of course. So close supervision, again, it's kind of a concept here. We're not asking for anything more than a reasonable attempt to make sure that if somebody is exhibiting obvious signs of having a problem with dealing with the heat or the level of exhaustion the work may be causing, that they keep in mind that an employee during this break-in period, and also, by the way, during any period where there's a heat wave, basically everybody is a new employee during the first heat wave, if you think about it. Nobody is really used to the heat. And so if you have a sudden increase in outdoor temperature and people are working for the first time that year or the first time for several months in dramatically higher temperatures, everybody kind of needs a break-in period. And, it's very hard to legislate that, and we're not attempting to do so on this standard, but common sense would tell you that you need to be cognizant of the fact when a heat wave first arrives that people are not in shape for that. it takes the body a good 2 weeks at least to get fully acclimatized to hotter temperatures. And if you want to, do your best to avoid casualties, you're going to keep that in mind, and you're going to be trying to adjust work activity and work times for that matter. You may want to start the shift earlier and end earlier so that you avoid the heat of the day. A lot of this is just using reasonable judgment, and we're not going to be able to legislate that. We can, give you some guidance in this reg, but in general, you really have to dig deeper and understand the reasoning behind this. And the training materials will help you to do that, by the way, and act accordingly.
And if I could just follow up on that, Len, we do have a Q&A document that's available and provides a good information, is a good resource for employers and employees. And it specifically talks about this issue. And two of the most important things for an employer with new employees is that they should be extra vigilant during that initial 2-week break-in period and be in a position to recognize, immediately symptoms of possible heat illness. So just wanted to clarify that and also make sure that folks are aware of the Q&A document. It's available on the DIR website at Calosha link.
Okay, thank you. Unless there's something else on this question, I'll move to the next one. All right, and the next question is from Elodia Criado, and she's asking, what do you consider adequate water sources for refills? Water fountains, hose connection of a house, or maybe more specifically, what is not an appropriate water source? And Mr. Krisha, can you take this one?
Well, the water has to be potable water, and one of the things that we've seen out in the field and has caused some concern is when we issue citations because they're drinking out of a garden-type hose that's laying in the dirt. And, again, it's just like maintaining the cleanliness and the sanitary nature of the water supply system. When we actually go out and look in igloos, pop the top off the igloo containers and look to see if the water's clean, if the igloo's been cleaned. We don't want to see things like algae in there or little bits of stuff floating around in the water. In addition, we want to make sure that it comes from a potable source, so no drinking out of drip systems in agriculture. I don't know if that answers the question directly, but yeah, we do evaluate that when we do field inspections. You need to make sure that there are hoses that are approved for potable drinking water systems. Those would be okay to use, but you want to make sure that everything's maintained in an appropriate and sanitary condition.
Let me add to that also. I didn't say this before. I'll say it. I try to make a habit of saying it every time. Water is the body's single most important defense against heat illness. There is no single thing you can do other than getting out of the heat to help your body deal with heat that's more effective than drinking water. So you want to make not only the water source sanitary, that pretty much goes without saying. What would you want to drink yourself? Ask yourself that question when you're evaluating the employee's water supply. But secondly, make it attractive. The more attractive you make the water supply, the more available, cooler, the more employees are going to want to drink it. And it's very important to be getting employees to drink even when they don't necessarily feel all that thirsty. You certainly don't want it to be a situation where they don't want to drink the water because it looks like something's wrong with it or it smells like something's wrong with it, and they don't do it until they really absolutely feel desperately dehydrated or something. You want them to be drinking before they feel that way. You want to make it attractive.
Okay, very good. We do have another question from Terry Fidel. Have any requests for heat illness prevention procedures or policies come in from the Gulf Coast and the ongoing oil spill? Chris, can you address that one?
I am not aware of requests to Cal OSHA. Obviously, our materials and our standard are available for reference purposes, but the Gulf Coast area is a combination of federal enforcement jurisdiction and state program jurisdiction. So I'm not aware of any kinds of requests coming in, but obviously employees working down there, particularly in the protective suits, doing physically active work in the sun in a hot, humid environment is certainly a serious hazard that needs to be evaluated and addressed by the employer community.
Okay, thank you. We do have one question via email that I think we should also include, and that is that they're requesting ideas to help when catering department works outside during summer events.
I can start on that one. I might ask Bill to chime in. Catering is probably not going to be too much of a problem. If you're catering to folks, the folks you're catering to are obviously going to want to be comfortable in the heat, and you are probably going to be having provision for them, to be able to get out of the sun and things like that. So the main thing is to remember that it's not just the guests that you need to be thinking of. You need to be thinking of the workers as well. I mean, the issue is water and shade, and it seems to me that since you're catering, you're going to be having plenty of liquids there. The main thing is just, sometimes you want to keep the workers separate from the guests, and so if that's your policy in keeping workers separate from the guests, you need to make sure that they have, similar means to get out of the sunlight if they need to. And of course, all the other general concepts apply. You want them to be trained, and you want them to understand what the signs and symptoms of heat illness are. But in general, this is fairly low. Fortunately, it's low exhaustion kind of work. Although I don't want to minimize the stress somebody can be under when they're, catering to a large group of folks. But generally speaking, it's not heavy physical labor. So that's the good news. I think it's mainly just a matter of planning and organization.
Yeah, this is Bill. I'd like to add a couple comments on that. I know that early on we did have several confirmed heat incidents in catering. And I think that everything that Len has said, really focuses in on water, shade, and allowing folks to take a preventative or cool-down rest in the shade. So you may want to think about rotating folks around, especially if they're cooking at a hot grill where they've got an additional heat source. If they want to take a break, of course, they're entitled to a break, a cool-down rest period. It's important, too, to highlight here, not only for caterers, but for anybody working outdoors. The standard covers anybody. We've talked a lot about agriculture, some about construction, but it would cover caterers and security people. Anybody working outdoors is protected by the standard.
Okay, very good. We'll move to the next question. It's actually more of a commentary from Anika Forrester regarding improvised seats. From a food safety standpoint, it's not a recommended practice to use food containers for other purposes than holding fruit, such as improvised seating. It might be nice to make sure examples of ideal seating not illustrate such a practice, even though sitting on a fruit crate might satisfy the heat illness standard. And actually, I can add to that by asking a request of those that are currently at this meeting or at this webinar, if you have examples of shade, which then please do send those to us at heat@dir.ca.gov, because we do want to, utilize other practices that make total sense. Correct, Lynn?
Yeah, and I do want to, that actually is a good comment. And you recall at the beginning of this, we showed the picture of the guy sitting on the cooler. You do have to be thinking in a fairly disciplined manner about how you're going to provide an area of shade for people and all the things that should go with that. None of these things are just issues that you snap your fingers and they go away. I mean, it does take planning, and one does need to think about issues like sanitation, because you do, in a lot of cases, you're going to have a lot of things close together. You may have the toilets nearby. You got, true, some crates may be used for the fruit, and it's not the greatest idea to have people sitting on those. And the water coolers that we saw in that picture, it looks like a convenient place to sit, but it isn't really what you want to be happening. So you need to think all these things through, and it often, it helps also to think about yourself doing that work and being in that situation and how you would feel about all of the issues, including sanitation.
Okay, very good. The next question that we have is from Lori. And she is saying that they are starting a solar installation project, and how do they get a shade on a sloped roof?
Roofing in general is just problematic in so many areas. Working on the roof of a structure is just fraught with all kinds of hazards. And the injury and illness rates reflect that. Basically you may have difficulty getting shade up there, which means you have to get people down to an area with shade, and you have to think about intervals where that's going to be made possible, and situations where somebody is working and maybe they're feeling like they might get overcome and they got to get down right away. They are, after all, working above ground, and if they are to lose balance, get dizzy, they could fall, and it might not even look like a heat illness injury because they fall and they, hurt themselves or worse. But it could well be that heat exhaustion may have been a factor in that. And I think we have a couple of fatality instances in the past where people were working up high, there was no shade, and it was not a quick thing for them to get down from where they were. And we're left to speculate in a couple of these cases about what happened, but it does appear that heat may have been a factor. So again, you really, a certain amount of evaluating the actual work being done, and considering the fact that especially as it gets hotter and hotter, situations may arise that could quickly jeopardize safety if you're not thinking about how to get people in and out of there fast, or up and down from there fast, that kind of thing. No easy answer there. It's a matter of planning.
Hi, this is Bill. I'd like to add a couple of things. I think that it's absolutely critical here, if you have new employees, like the proposal that we have in front of the board now, to make sure that you supervise them, that you evaluate them, because this is an area where it would be more critical. As Len's pointed out, you are working at elevation, and even signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion may put those employees at greater risk. So it's important to do that. Think about a best practice such as work rotation. I've seen other folks in other industries, including agriculture, go through and have folks take routine rest periods in the shade. They blow a bell or whistle, make sure folks drink water to stay hydrated. Things like that. And it really depends on the uniqueness of the project and how large it is. But on exceptionally hot days, this would be a very high-risk procedure, and you'd have to really pay attention to the employees. Have the shade as close as practicable. Water could be on the roof, cool water for them to drink, and very close supervision of the crew.
Okay, we do have another question via email on specially innovative shade solutions. The person would like to see someone develop canopies that extend from the picking trailer, where pickers are visiting every 10 minutes anyway. These could fold, roll up, retract each time the trailer moves down the road. The standard market pop-ups are useless as they blow away, bend, and get wrecked in short order, not to mention tedious to move.
Well, I think this is Chris. I think the standard is performance performance-oriented in that regard, and that is that shade must be provided. We don't specify that it needs to be a certain type or certain structure or be comprised of certain materials. The bottom line is, excuse me, that shade must be provided as required in the standard. So any solution that an employer might come up with, given the unique or specific requirements of the operation that meets the requirement of the standard to provide shade, obviously you'd want to think about possible hazards that you might have with people coming in and out, with produce or what have you, and equipment that they might be using. You certainly don't want to create exposures, while you're trying to comply with the shade requirements. So basically, it's a performance-oriented issue, and it's to make sure that you provide the shade as articulated in the standard.
Thank you. Anything more on that? All right, we do have a comment from Victor Daraj, and he's letting us know that the Western Center for Ag Health and Safety at UC Davis, which is a NIOSH-sponsored center, also has an email list where folks can exchange questions, comments, and guidance on various topics, including shade structures. You'll want to look for that. It's at, looks like http://agcenter.ucdavis.edu. And also, once again, the email for our heat at dir.ca.gov. That is the Department of Industrial Relations email, where you can send questions, comments, pictures. We are building a frequently asked question page that will be on our heat illness prevention, and we'll also include a link on our www.99calor.org. Okay, and there's just one final question, looks like, and that was whether the required seating under the shade is a new requirement.
No. That's the way we've been enforcing the standard since we had it on the books. All we're saying is the principle here is do not make the employee have to suffer another hazard, deal with the hazard of heat. Just as we would say, do not make it so that an employee has to crouch underneath a tractor or a vehicle to get out of the sun. Don't make it so they have to, contact dirt, which could raise sanitation issues. They need to be able to get out of the sun in shade in a sanitary and decent and comfortable way.
Okay, that actually concludes I don't see any other questions coming in.
A couple of wrap-up items.
Very good.
Okay. We do have an evaluation. We are looking for folks' feedback. Since this is really a new tool for us, the webinar, we'd really like your input on this. So we will be sending out a survey. Please take a look at it. Take a few minutes to reply. We'd really appreciate your input on this. And also, I wanted to mention that avail yourself to the resources that we've put together through our educational outreach campaign. It's all on our website at www.99calor.org. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us here at the Department of Industrial Relations. The email address is heat@dir.ca.gov. Again, that's heat@dir.ca.gov. So we'll send out the survey, and please check out our website and let us know if you have any questions. I want to thank everyone for attending, and if we have, and when we do have future webinars, we will send out a notice and hope you all can attend again at that time. Thanks much. Take care.